Hey NHL gamers, Ken here with Clement Kwong,
Clement
NHL
Kwong.
producer, and Jonas Virta,
Thanks for having me.
streamer mastermind.
Yeah.
Clem, what would you say are the biggest improvements in NHL 20 for you? What's the hype? Why should you buy this game?
Right. I mean, there's I mean, speaking the right audience here, but we have, kind of our top four areas. One, probably we'll spend more time on than others, but, our gameplay innovation. Next, actually the part I'm most excited about in terms of our presentation overhaul, new commentary team. Obviously, you guys have seen it in the beta, so been seeing and getting a lot of good feedback. So far so good. And then next, we've added to our live service plan, to continue to deliver cultural live service through EASHL. And last but not least, adding new ways to play multiplayer, both co-op and competitively in EASHL.
Yeah.
And HUT.
Of course, yeah. You mentioned the new commentary team. How long ago have those guys come into the studio and started recording? Because it's got to be thousands of lines to record, right?
Yeah, well, it's more than we can do in a year. I think it was tens of thousands. It's like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 50, 60, 70,000 lines that we would have had to replace. And obviously it's not feasible to do that in a single year, right? So the team took a very strategic approach. So basically went from, hey, what are the biggest moments in the game that we need to focus on? So obviously the basic stuff like, player names, team names, that's a given. But focusing on the big moments like goals, like things are happening, focusing on you as a player, with the player locked experience especially, and then starting to fill that out, right? So that was a big process for us that we had started engaging James and Ray on, I would say late summer last year.
Yeah.
So 2018. Yeah. So it's been a year-long process, and those are fantastic guys to work with. One of the things I mentioned earlier that was important to us is finding local talent so that as needed we can bring them in, whether separately or together, without having the difficulties of arranging around schedules for Doc and Eddie and then having to fly them both to Chicago. Again, they were great to work with, and they're fantastic people. But from a creative standpoint, where we're trying to build a new commentary design, we needed the flexibility to help us be able to achieve those goals, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think starting early, engaging them early was really critical.
Yeah, and you can really hear some more powerful energy. Some say James is even too excited at sometimes, but I so far I love it.
Yep. I mean, it is. If nothing else, you can't say that the commentary is the same.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Yeah, that was the first goal.
Yeah. Sticking to presentation, you also redesigned, of course, the NBC look is gone, so you have new overlays, new scoreboard. Lots of opinions about that circling on the internet. Personally, I like it, but many have complained that it's on the bottom of the screen. So when you're going up, you may not notice. We actually had a game with Jonas here, and I didn't notice when the period ended because we didn't have the sound on, so you didn't get the audio cue, and then you don't have your eyes at the bottom of the screen, so you miss it. And some have also complained that it would cover the puck sometimes. I haven't personally had that problem, but are there plans to have the option to move that clock around?
If I'm being honest, probably not in the immediate future. But I know that there's some things that the team is looking at, in terms of prioritizing the feedback. I think the puck issue is one of the things that the team is looking at. Audio cue for I think penalties expiring and end of period is definitely one. Not to say that we're going to get everything in, but those are kind of the top ones I know of that the team is considering.
Right. Well, let's come in with a classic that's been asked for a few years.
Right.
Frostbite.
Good stuff.
Frostbite, right? Let's take a little bit of a different approach. We know it's not in. It feels like people have been asking for it for many years, ever since FIFA came out with it. Why not? Why is... I've developed an understanding that just because it's Frostbite, just because it has amazing explosions and all that, and FIFA looks great, it may not be the best for your product. Yeah,
I think, like with anything, the lens I approach this problem with is, what do we not get if we either go down the Frostbite path or, versus something else, like continue down our current tech, right? And our goal as game developers is to make sure we pump out a game that everybody gets excited about every year, right? We talk about maximizing fun. And for us right now, the focus is on multiplayer, right? So multiplayer in World HL, multiplayer in HUD as our kind of two premium destinations. In addition to, satisfying some of the core needs within, franchise mode, right? So when you consider the balance of things and you look at how costly an engine shift is, and trust me, we've gone through those exercises, you look at the cost and you're like, well, do I not build a game and deliver the experiences that our fans are expecting, and pretty much hold off or maybe even take a step back on delivering those experiences and have an engine that we definitely could build on, or do we actually prioritize the short-term benefits, right? What I'm trying to say is there's never kind of clean math that makes it work. We have to plan for it, right? And I think what we have done now with World HL specifically is focusing more on that multiplayer experience, right? More on that cultural live service, so hopefully the next time you ask me, I'll have a different answer. Exactly. But I mean that's a truthful answer right now. Is it comes down to weighing the ROI and cost benefit. Right.
There was actually a question on Facebook. It was a little bit harsh, but when are you gonna rebuild the game? When are you gonna start over? When are you gonna scrap everything and start over and not just update the rosters?
I mean, I have to say, possible? Well, anything's possible. Will we do it? Probably not. We have to look at everything from, hey, who are we building the game for, right? And obviously, with this community, it's more the core group. It's all about online competitive play. It's all about gameplay. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, we're not building the game just for one group of players. We're trying to take a really wide lens, and that's why we started looking at testing things and taking chances on things like threes, right? Things like outdoor ones and casual gear. All comes down to kind of priority calls, right? But I'm not saying that it will never happen. We might get to the point where we're like, hey, it might just make more sense to rebuild certain parts of the code. That may be a possibility, but it's not something we're considering right now.
Right, but that's the key phrase, like right there. Part of the code. You can't just start from nothing unless you do it in a several-year cycle, right?
Right. I mean, you have to consider, especially with a yearly release title, we can't just say, oh, we're not going to ship for this year, right?
Right.
I mean, you guys wouldn't be very happy with that. I wouldn't be very happy with that. And our shareholders definitely would not be very happy with that. So there are definitely some challenges and complications that we would have to consider.
Right.
And we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day, as game developers, why are we, redoing something, right? Yeah. Like I said earlier, there may well be like a good reason for that, but I think we need to take a hard look at why are we doing something in the first place. Is it going to make the game better? If it's not, then it doesn't make sense to do it, no matter the cost, right?
Right.
So I hope I answered your question there.
You definitely did. Yeah. I don't know if you can talk about this, but I had a privilege of visiting Vancouver in late April, and you had a great presentation for the game changers about the cycle of how the game is built, how much time each phase takes. Is that something you can share with the public?
Yeah, I mean that's knowledge I'm happy to share here.
Because I think it's a real eye opener when you realize how much of the process is polishing and fixing.
Yeah, I mean, really, we break it down to three phases, if you recall, right? The first part where we do design, concept, planning, feature prioritization, working with our game changers, obviously, and marketing, understanding, okay, what's the right audience, what's our opportunity, right? And start to really dial in on trying to focus the strategy for the product, all the way through, like I said, high level design and making sure that we can achieve our goals from a creative standpoint.
Right.
That's what we call like pre-production. Like that's where all the heavy lifting happens, and that's usually I would say 4 months long. So we have 4 months to plan the entire project end to end.
And when does that start usually?
Yeah, that starts usually. I call it early August. I mean, when we start to get the ball really rolling.
Right.
This year we had, initial conversations around, you know, what's the vision and direction for 21 I'm talking about. We started like a bit earlier, mid-July, but I would say like for all intents and purposes, each year, like August is where we're trying to juggle launch, beta feedback, patch, live support, as well as the next game.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not just the amount of time that we are restricted by, but all the other things around us, because, you know, we don't have two separate teams driving this.
Right.
Right. So we're limited by the fact that, hey, we need to roll producers off to start doing this and really apply focus. Right. So once we're kind of locked on the planning phase, at the end of the 4 months, we go into production. So that's when the actual implementation happens, right? All the code, all the testing, iteration and feedback. You know, we get to a point where, hey, we have, call it 2 milestones, right? Really what that means is, you know, we have a period of 6 weeks where we have 4 weeks development, you know, 1 week to kind of polish and fix everything, and then 1 final week of just making sure that, you know, everything is tight in terms of deliverables, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it's very important that we have predictability in the process to make sure we ship on time first and foremost, right? Like I was saying earlier, like if we either miss on quality or miss on dates, nobody's gonna be very happy about that, right? So we have to be really disciplined. And fortunately, we have a really talented team, a really experienced team that's good at doing this, right? So, I mean, personally, if you ask me which is the easiest part, I would say, you know, production, since if we did our job correctly in pre-production, then production goes smoothly, right? And production is usually around 3.5 months. So we don't, if you look at it from a, you know, calendar year perspective, we actually don't have a lot of time to like produce the code, right? That's why like good planning and you know, a lot of the upfront design is very important at that stage.
Yeah, that was a eye opener for me. I mean, I always knew there was a little time, but just to kind of see that visualized in these segments that are very short and you can't really shift them that much. Like you gotta.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that part of the pre-production is also looking at what was planned before but couldn't be implemented and was kind of pushed forward to the next title.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, and we have to, you know, to that very point, we need to leave ourselves room if we need to course correct, right? I mean, if for some reason something doesn't work out and we need to change a design, we need to build that in as part of the process, right? We don't get extra time to do that.
Right.
So, I mean, that takes us, you know, at the end of 3.5 months, let's say, takes us to alpha. So alpha is really at the point where we're supposed to be done the feature work, and we start testing, right? And start grinding out the bugs, you know, sorting out the issues, you know, and we do have a period of time where we can make changes, and we do. So we need to make sure that we use that time, you know, in an intelligent decisions, and that's where usually we'll bring in the game changers right around alpha, help us drive, you know, what we call change requests. So change that we small change that we want to make, and then you know, from alpha to about to beta is about 3 months.
Yeah,
a little under 3 months. But that's where all the bug fixing happens, and then from what we call, there's a 2-week period from beta to final where we're like, hey, now we gotta really make sure we shut down the game, get everything ready for first party testing and all that good stuff, and then, you know, and then the game goes into Microsoft and Sony for submission.
Yeah, and there's also like we saw with the beta, it was actually 8 weeks old code when it came out. So whether it's a beta or a demo, that's also a product that needs to be produced and tested and go through all these processes.
No, thank you. Thanks for touching on that. That was the next thing I was going to bring up is, you know, the beta obviously is an important tool for us. We want to make sure, A, that, you know, it is representative or mostly representative of our final product, but B, recognizing that there's still a whole lot of time, you know, to your point, that this year, that difference was 8 weeks of development. And 8 weeks of bug fixing and polish and development time is a lot, right? We're talking about hundreds of bugs that are fixed, right? And Ben might have shared this with you, but the list of stuff is long, right?
Actually, this time it was actually shared publicly in a blog post, and I thought that was absolutely great.
That was shared out. You're right. But the point being that, hey, we need to we almost need like a team on the side to treat that as a separate project.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, learning from this year, whether it's, early visibility, which is always good with especially this community, early visibility on the things that, hey, we know about this, we got it, let's focus on other areas. Maybe we can do a better job of that communication piece.
Yeah, I thought it was a great effort to come out with that. Obviously, the list was so long that it was impossible to remember whether or not something is fixed. Plus, as usual, you shouldn't assume. So I think it's important that we record these clips and report them, even though we think they might be fixed.
Yep.
Because sometimes assumption is not the best thing.
Yep.
And a great big thank you to the community for sending in all that beta feedback. And
thank you.
Keep those videos coming.
Yep, for sure.
Let's rip off another Band-Aid. GM Connected.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the game this year.
Nope.
I know you can't speak about if it's going to be in the game next year, but again, maybe you could briefly touch upon why it's not, like, because the layman would say everybody wants it. Why is it not in the game this year either?
Yep. I mean, again, there's a lot of feedback coming from a lot of different places, and GM Connected I know is one that comes up all the time, and because A, people have asked for it for a very long time, and B, we haven't had a satisfactory response. But going back to very similar topic we were discussing earlier around Frostbite, not that the two are the same. That's what I'm saying. But the thought process that goes behind, making a decision like Frostbite, or even making a huge investment like GM Connected, I mean, those are all costs, right?
Right. You can't just drag and drop the 360 version in there.
No, of course not. I wish we could. But yeah, I mean, that's really, if I'm being honest, the key reason, right? Again, if we're doing GM Connected, it means we're not doing something else.
Right.
So we just have to be, I mean, I wanna think that we're being smart about the choices that we've made. Understanding that sometimes those decisions doesn't mean that we're making a better game for everyone, right? So I think will there be an opportunity where we take a look at a GM Connect experience? Yeah, we've looked, we've asked, but I think again, similar to and other questions like, hey, why haven't you guys touched Via Pro, right?
That one's coming up still.
Yeah, no, let's kill two birds with one stone. I mean, that's that's a good one too, because we get asked a lot about that, right? And being when I was younger, I played franchise mode and Via Pro, so I mean, those are important modes that I grew up with. But still, it stands like the same reasoning applies there. Is if we're doing that, what else are we not doing? Plus, what is expected quality level that we're going to be able to deliver it at, right?
Right.
So yeah, no, we definitely want to do a GM Connected and be a pro. Like, as game developers, we want to do everything. Yeah. But we also have to keep in mind that we also to do that and make such a big investment, we want to make sure we get it right the first time. Yeah. Right. And that's not always easy call to make, especially when we have so many different groups of users wanting, some are wanting, hey, brand new experiences like GM Connected and Be a Pro, while others like, yeah, I'd be amazed if you can fix, goalies and glitch goals and, puck pickups, which we I think have done a lot of work around to improve.
I hear they're seamless this year. Pickups.
Yeah, more seamless.
It's been thrown around, but from our play testing so far, it actually seems really good. But it is a bit of a running gag that there needs to be a new term coined for that.
Yeah, that that's where kind of our legacy kind of bites us a bit, right?
But hey, RPM too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personally, the puck pickups was the first change that, even when I was shown the prototype, that was something I got really excited about, because we talk about something that you have to feel to appreciate, but unless you're playing the game and you actually count how many times that happens in a certain game, it's mind-blowing, right? It's like, every time you take a pass, every time you skate up to loose puck, like all those, like we've cleaned up a lot of friction around those areas.
Yeah, I would even say that the difference is that you don't feel it, because in the past it felt like automation took over, and you would be skating a long way in a straight line while you wanted to go left, and now you don't feel it because you're not forced to do something.
You definitely give it more and more control, and one of the things that I think to credit Ben and the gameplay team, we've actually increased the flow and the perception of speed in the game without touching game speed, right? And that's a huge deal, right? Obviously, you guys understand, with some of the challenges that we've had last year in terms of the beta tuner. So I'm actually glad we went down that path, right? It shows that we're listening. It shows that your feedback is important to us. But rest assured, I didn't want to go down that path. Have to go down that path again this year, knowing that was a challenge, right? So that's why I was really excited to see pickups come together.
Yeah, and I think Jonas could give a better opinion on this one, but the left trigger L2 skating has been tuned now, and how do you, based on the beta and what you played today, how do you feel about it?
I think it feels kind of same as in beta. I don't know if you have touched it at all of the beta, but I think it feels good because now you slow down a lot. You cannot spam it. You cannot use it as going through the neutral zone every time. You can of course make space at the offensive zone and use it and cover the puck, and that's very good for that one. But I think you can still use it, but it's not that effective, so it will not be the meta to use anymore after last year.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
totally for the community.
It's one of the tools rather than the overpowered one thing. At least so far. Of course, somebody will figure out some way to break it, but we'll give our feedback as soon as possible.
That's how things work. And if I were to channel my inner Ben Ross here, with the LT balance, we didn't want to nerf it in a way where we're taking that out completely, because it is legitimate for NHL skaters to pivot, right? But the way that we handle it in a way that it makes sense physically and respecting the skate blade. What we did, I think, was a step in the right direction. Is it going to be perfect? Maybe not, but we'll work with you guys on the feedback, right? But I feel I see the team, because we have some team members are really good at the game, and they're good at L2 for PS4 users.
Yeah, it depends.
And I asked them how bad is this year? So, or is it an improvement? And we're like, no, we feel like there's the right amount of deceleration and penalization so that you can't accelerate, going backwards into the offensive zone. Yeah.
So we ripped off a Band-Aid with Be a Pro and no GM connected, but on the offline side of managing, there's been, in my opinion, I'm not a huge expert on the subject, but I sat in on a probably 3-hour session in Vancouver listening to franchise mode and with Tugi and the other guys, and it just sounds like there's been so much work done to it. But if you had to give a short brief about what's being changed there, what would you say?
Oh, Gurn, I'm not going to do Gurn and the franchise mode team justice, but I think the biggest thing is, we talk about player agency and choice. The example I brought up earlier in our presentation was you no longer want to pick, to trade for the highest rated guy. Maybe you want to trade for a guy who's slightly lower in OVR but plays better with your scheme, right? And how does that player factor into your overall team performance, factoring into your teammate morale and coach morale, right? So now that becomes now that becomes a single piece of the puzzle where you need to manage all the different parts. I think that's a cool thing about coaches, right? So you factor in line chemistry, factor in the new conversation system, factor in the fact that, hey, you can now interview a coach before hiring them to make sure that they fit your style, and all the way to minor details like the trade finder, right? That improves quality of life for finding trades, right? Of course, again, that's not for everyone, so you can go back to the classic style of trading, right? But I don't think I can go back, to be honest. I'm using the trade finder.
Yeah, it seems like a good tool. And outside of all of these new features, from my understanding to listening to the guys, the real franchise nerds, and I mean this in the best possible way.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of their concerns, bugs and such, have been fixed. So you should see more reliable stats and realistic stats, and as far as I understood, simulation speed is improved and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff under the hood as well that has been fixed.
Little details.
Yeah.
Little details. Yeah. That team's done some good work.
All right. Continuing to something that will interest especially Jonas here. What's new in Hockey Ultimate Team? We haven't quite. I hear there's a deep dive coming, but can you share with us?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we've talked about squad battles. I mean, you guys are pretty familiar with it, but I mean that's an exciting new way for us to, when we talk about new experiences and cultural live service, being able to have athletes, celebrities, artists come in, or influencers, members of our community. That's a really great tool for us to have, and it's not to necessarily say we need more ways to play in HUT. Because I think if I'm being honest, like there's probably a little too many ways to play right now. That's not kind of cohesive in a way. But it made sense, I think, for squad battles, especially where it filled a gap that HUT challenges didn't fill. And for me, the part about what's compelling is having the community teams selected and to be able to refresh that content, right? Where that piece kind of felt stale with challenges. Yeah, and I'm being really honest here.
Yeah.
The other piece, and you'll have more visibility to this after talking to Nick, but I'm actually quite excited about some of the new approaches to content and the plans that the live team has. So again, I can't say too much here, but I think you're gonna hopefully see some things that have resonated with the community before, and we'll do more. Definitely do want to do more of that. But hopefully you'll see a few things that might surprise you as well.
Yeah. Sounds good. And speaking to Nick, in Vancouver, he said something that I felt was kind of brave, because he came in and took over HUT, and he said that he felt that HUT was too complicated. Making all of these sets, all of this stuff was too complicated, and that resonated with me because I play it a lot, but some of the stuff just goes like whoosh, because you have to do so many things. You have to collect this and that, and you have to be everywhere all the time doing all of these things. And of course, if you're someone like Jonas, or if you have all the time to put into it, it's great. But if you're a casual player, it might be a little bit too difficult to get into the whole set making.
I'm fully on board with his, one of the team's philosophy, and obviously this is influenced by Nick a lot, is we want to make sure, whether you're a heavy engager or medium engager, or even someone maybe that just dabbles in HUT and you have light engagement, that we have something for you in terms of content, right? Content that you can unlock throughout our campaign. So I'm excited to see what kind of experiences we're able to craft this year in that regard. And for sure, like we want to reduce friction and increase the approachability of HUT at every opportunity we have, right? Yeah. So I think you guys are going to see a lot of things on the content side. That's going to be pretty fun.
At least the new pack openings were cool.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to accomplish with the pack opening is add some flair, add some personality, inject some energy. A lot of the same things that we're trying to do with the new presentation overhaul. So I mean, James is the perfect man for that job, and we were looking at initially. The team was looking, at adding it to more places, but we felt that the icons, the rare icons, I guess you would call them, was a place we felt where we get the most bang for the buck and the highest production quality, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to undersell it, but you don't want to overdo it either, right?
Absolutely.
So I was pretty happy. We got, I think, 50 plus at the end of it all.
Sorry,
50 plus icon players with their unique VOs.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. There was a question from the community about the HUT leaderboards and the sorting of those. Is that something you can comment on? Has that been changed, or will it reflect what was in 19?
Oh, I am not too familiar with that. So can I opt out from that question?
Of course, of course.
I mean, we can follow up with Andy and Nick.
Right.
After fact.
Jumping from HUT to Versus, as far as I understand, besides the obvious gameplay stuff, there hasn't been that many changes to how Versus works.
No.
So my question would be the one that everybody wants. Saving your lines before a game. You can edit them before the game and they will stay throughout the session, but you leave and you got to do it over again. Guys like Jonas and Eki are saying that it would save probably hours of their life if they could just have them stored.
Hours in like one tournament almost.
Yeah.
In LAN tournaments, and you always have to put them in.
All right.
Is there a reason why it's so difficult that it's not being put in yet?
No. Yes, there is there's a reason. Consider that added to the long list of requests.
Right. Another thing
that isn't one that to answer the question seriously.
Right.
That isn't one that is, like often requested. Like at least not a lot of people are like, hey, this needs to be on top of the list.
Right.
Yeah, most of the people don't even change those.
Yeah.
Like we change every line, every stretch, every game. Like
But I can understand for this example, your use case, it is very helpful.
Right. Of course, roster sharing is also a very requested thing, but this I feel would be kind of a middle ground or a good start towards that you would be able to save your preferences.
Yeah, I mean, especially as we're talking about, sharing content, like social content, not just roster sharing, but being able to share, any number of, pieces of data across the game is going to be a very important focus for us. So, I'm not committing to having, roster sharing in 21 or 22, but that is something that's going to be important to us.
Right. Something that's spoken a lot about recently is crossplay. Do you see that being a thing for the NHL series in the near future?
Oh man, as a gamer, I'd say that's a great idea. We need it. It is to be honest, something that we have looked into. But with the again with our priorities and team size, you have to look at, hey, maybe that's one where we let the FIFAs and the Maddens of the world take the bullet first, and we can trail behind them. I mean, it's technically possible. Obviously, Rocket League does it, right? So we know it's technically feasible.
Yeah.
And it would definitely benefit a smaller usage base,
right?
For NHL specifically because of our matchmaking pools, right? So yeah,
maybe throw the PC version in there.
Oh yeah.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Can you say are there any plans? Are you looking into it? It's a very requested.
Yeah, feature. We always look into it.
Right. Yeah, but obviously crossplay would be one thing that would help with having the appropriate population.
If we have, when we have a SKU on PC. Guaranteed one of the things that we'll be asking the team is, hey, how can we bring PC, Xbox, and PlayStation users all in the same ecosystem?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's in the very near future.
Yeah, there was actually a thing before that Jonas brought up was the differences between the Xbox and the PS4 version. Yeah, the so-called bumps. Which I think that's the biggest thing.
Oh yes,
yeah, the bumps.
I've heard from Ben that this is
it's a major one.
It's a complaint.
That's why everyone plays on PS4 here, because of it's kind of different gameplay wise on PS4 and Xbox, and they prefer the bumpier version of the gameplay.
Yeah. So on that note, I've heard that feedback from Ben. Obviously, he's closer to than I am, but there's no. On the surface, there's no reason why the game would play differently, right? So that's something that we need to spend time looking into.
Yeah, consulting maybe or something, because we know that it's different. Like because we played like with Eki and Hansu, we qualified through Game World Championship with Xbox, so we played a lot and we felt the difference right away, and the whole journey that we went to the Game World Championship. But of course, it can be a consulting, because I think someone told me that it's been there for a while, like for years, that it's somehow different a bit on Xbox than on PS4.
Yeah.
The gameplay.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
All right. We don't want to eat up too much of your time, so let's try and shoot a few questions off the board quite quickly. Right. Any news on the practice mode for EASHL?
Something we're looking into.
Yeah. Very requested feature year after year. Let's take the spectator mode on the table as well.
Spectator is a interesting one, because obviously, like, you know, with all the great work that you guys are doing, in addition to, you know, the GWC that's been going for the last 2 years, you know, anytime we can put you know, more UGC content creation tools into the hands of our community, it makes our job easier, right?
Yeah.
So I think I definitely see the benefit for us, as well as, you know, our community. You know, so that's also on the list, like, of things. I'm being very honest with you, list of things that we're evaluating. Nothing I can share this time, though.
Yeah, keep requesting it. We'll get it eventually. Sticking to another question about EASHL.
Yeah.
It's a request of, I mean, I thought it was great that you added the high, low, medium population to the dressing room. Would it be possible to make it a little bit more clear, such as saying how many teams are searching? Because that would be a little bit more beneficial if you're looking for games at 4 a.m.
Right.
Or at least communicating what those...
Why aren't you in bed at 4 a.m?
In Finland we play...
Well, this is your fault. But
that is a good suggestion. I suggest you float it by Cappy.
Yeah, we'll take that with him. I believe I know the answer to this one, but there's a question whether or not the face-off trait was left out intentionally from EASHL.
I feel like I know the answer to this question.
I believe
I feel like I should not say something I am unsure of.
I'll take the bullet on this one. 99% sure, yes. It was requested because people wanted to be able to use other traits instead of being locked to that specific trait.
Yeah. And not being feeling like, you know, if you're centerman, you're forced to use
exactly. Well, classic question. Goalie leaves to the bench. Sixth skater comes on. When can we control them?
Keep asking.
Yeah. Definitely will.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea.
No, it was in the game, but I know. Cut.
Are those like gamer tags hidden in HUT?
That's a great question.
For
the competitive play.
Presentation overlays, right? The intro overlays.
Yes, like, because the biggest problem for me was I was searching for a game like 4 hours sometimes.
Literally 4 hours.
Yeah, and got like dodged like 80 times in that 4 hours because of my game attack. And then they removed it, but then there was the operation.
Squirrel in the Jumbotron.
Yeah, that one. And then of course if you paused it, you saw the operations over there.
Yes.
And then they knew my operation, and the same stuff started to happen, not so often, but again. So is there any way to do it so they cannot find me, who I am? Or should I just use like HUT operation and try my best to hide me? Like,
I think I think that's a challenge. I think that's a challenge that, you know, we'll always face if we can't, you know, handle the hiding the gamer tag properly, right? So there's two sides of it I see. So A is, you know, obviously if we put the effort into fixing it, like, you know, in the overlays, I think we should we should consider fixing it on our end. We're removing it completely. But I think, you know, the other side is how do we discourage people from dodging, right? So do we, you know, do we go all the way and punish and be kind of too harsh and just say, hey, as soon as you're matchmake, as soon as you know, find a match, you have to play, or else, you know, it's DNF, right?
Right.
So I mean, those are all conversations we have with the team. I mean, it's possible, you know, but we have to consider like what would be the blowback coming the other way if, you know, legitimately you have a bad connection to someone, right?
The other side,
so yeah, I mean that's a good question. I'll take back to the team. Yeah, I mean, especially if we continue, you know, doing more stuff around GWC using HUT, right?
Yeah.
So I can
Can
definitely
that
see
be a
definitely see
question?
upside.
Do you know already? Is that being used the HUT already in the Game of Championship? Because I know people want to know as soon as they can, so they can. Start to do
so to be honest, my complete honest answer to that question is I don't know yet because we haven't really talked to the NHL about, you know, what. Yes, we have talked to the NHL obviously about the high level plans for GWC, but we have no firm plans on, hey, you know, where it's going to be played, when, you know, are we going to change anything to the structure, all those details we just don't have answers yet right now, right? But you know, hopefully in the next 4 to 6 months we'll hear more.
Yeah, they want to know as soon as possible because
yes,
they want to.
You know, we heard that. We've heard that feedback loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yes. So definitely, our goal is definitely, you know, earlier the better. Yeah. Earlier communication, the better this year.
Yeah. There's this opinion about replays being skippable in the full game. In the beta, at least, it seemed like the start of a goal replay and the play of the period or play of the game ones were not skippable for the most part. And the wish here is that that would be fully skippable. We didn't actually try that today, I think, because we were actually recording replays. Oops.
Yeah, I mean, that was a, from what I recall, that was a conscious design decision, right? So anytime, I mean, and this is kind of like where I can see it from both sides, like, you know, our number one reaction, especially when we're, you know, even playing each other on the couch in the office, like skip, right? But from a presentation and, you know, wanting to kind of show off your achievement point of view, you may very well want to let your opponent know, hey, I scored on you, I want to make you watch it.
Absolutely. I mean, the other side of the coin is I would love to see more replays. Not forced replays necessarily, but you would have the same presentation package as you have in like franchise, because I started our franchise last year and I was like, all of these cool things are in here that aren't actually in Versus.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the more requested features from my side as well, and I have given my feedback many times to Vancouver, that at least in the, what do you call them, challenge club games where you're playing a predetermined opponent, you could set some specific settings for like don't skip replays, or you have 3 pauses or whatever like that.
Yep.
That's more of a feedback than a question, but
yeah, I mean, feel free to hit us up with your suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before the interview, a lot of this stuff I have already spoken with the appropriate person about, but I just want to assure the community that this feedback is also going through through Vancouver. So Clem might not know about that specific little part of that gameplay feedback, but the guys are really listening there.
Yeah, there are a lot of smart people back home, smarter than myself, thankfully, doing this job. Hearing your feedback.
Yeah. I guess you've heard this one before as well, but how about adding a Reconnect feature to EASHL? At least to those predetermined, what do you call them, challenge games.
Yep.
I guess let's take it from this.
We've investigated it.
Right. Where's the problematic part there?
I think you need to, I mean, being able to rejoin the game isn't the hardest part. I think when you have to consider like, hey, what if I'm the goalie and my opponent is on a breakaway? I know I'll automatically gain an advantage if I drop myself from the game.
Right.
Let AI goalie take over and then I come back in. Right. Or the other example that we often discuss is, hey, you have matched into a 4 or 5 person aside game. Now one person drops. How long do we wait? Before we let them back in, right? Does it come? Do we throw away especially in a competitive game? Do we actually throw away the results now?
Yeah.
Because that player, whether they did it on purpose or not, but they need to say reboot their console and then it takes them 5 minutes to get back in the game.
Yeah, and you have
is that still valid, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we have to get closer to, what are the specific use cases, right? Like I said earlier, do we allow people to do it in certain situations and not allow them to do it in others?
Right.
So when we're talking about, messing with the online matchmaking and gameplay flow,
right,
those are very complicated problems to solve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the tech itself, at least based on what I understand, isn't the complicated part.
All right.
It's like, how do we, again, all the complexities that we don't necessarily think about until we're like, oh yeah, well, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
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 So it's all the error handling, edge cases.
Yeah. And we see it in real hockey as well. I can't remember which goalie it was, but he gets a 2-0, and he's just like, I'll push the net away.
Yeah.
Take the penalty, no problem.
Yeah.
Or penalty shot.
Yeah.
But
I believe Mike Smith did that a lot.
Yeah. But in my opinion, for instance, just allowing it in those private games as a setting and joining during a stoppage, that should be late.
Yeah.
Because then every specific league can handle that case by case and say, hey, this is happening way too much or whatever. And then it's not your problem if it's. I mean, you have to still build it, so you have to prove a point to why you're wasting resources on it. But from an esport perspective, I think that would be great.
I think even ideally, there's a way that we can figure out how to, sandbox test these things with you guys. I mean, that'd be a perfect example.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely great. Server selection for EASHL. Mm-hmm. I know in North America, people live very far across, and now in Europe as well, we have the Irish server and the Swedish server, and people would like the option to choose.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Talk to Cappy. Yeah, let's fix it.
I mean, all jokes aside, I think that's an example of something we should be able to do.
Right.
Yeah. So we just need to balance against all the other priorities that we have.
Exactly. So keep spamming EA forums, right?
You do that.
No comment. Button remapping. Is there a specific reason why you don't want to allow it?
Lots of work.
Yeah. Maybe not in EASHL.
Sorry, I should answer your question seriously. I mean, yes, work aside, but a lot of thought and testing goes into obviously our now very complicated control scheme. I mean, it's not complicated for you guys, but imagine a new or casual user coming in trying to understand, right? Yeah. It's like me trying to play Madden. I don't understand that at all.
Same.
Anyways, but I mean that's the key thing is we feel like we get to a spot every year, especially when we add new mechanics where like deking, for example, like how many buttons can we use and what buttons make sense?
And what do you have to take away?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, from a customization point of view, makes absolute sense. Right. But from a usability point of view, we want to make sure what we have in there at the very least works for most people. Right.
Right. I guess for Versus, you don't really have any free buttons, but you don't have line changes in EASHL, so maybe you could allow for using stick lifting or something. The biggest complaint, I guess, is with puck protection and how you can accidentally slash somebody when you're trying to protect the puck, and that's kind of
true. Yes,
borderline unrealistic. Even though, of course, you have to watch your tapping or whatever. But that's one of the cases.
Put tape over it.
Yeah.
Hey, NHLGamer, thank you for your continued feedback and support. We hope you enjoy the game. As always, keep it coming, and this is an important dialogue for us to engage with our community. So look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Thank you.